What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Welcome to a special solo edition of the Morning View this morning. We've got plenty to get into. We're going to talk about Sir Jim Ratcliffe possibly preparing a bid to purchase Manchester United from the Glazer family. Speaking of the Glazers as well, Avram speaks. Yes, a rare treat, a rare Thanksgiving treat, as Avram Glazer, one of the co-owners and co-chairman of Manchester United, has spoken for the first time since the club went up for sale, or was the statement came out from Manchester United that they were exploring possible alternatives. Basically, the club's up for sale, and he's spoken for the first time. He was ambushed outside of a restaurant that he was heading to by a Sky News reporter, and there were some interesting tidbits that he dropped regarding the decision, the strategic decision for the club to be placed on the market. Plus, he spoke about Cristiano Ronaldo. He was asked, how couldn't he be? So he spoke about that, so we're going to get into that. David Beckham, Manchester, from one number 7 to another. David Beckham, could he be involved? Really? Could Golden Balls himself be involved in purchasing Manchester United? Possibly. It's possible. There's news about that, and actually quite credible news from a really credible outlet. So we'll touch on that. Jadon Sancho doing a bit of mid-season training in Holland by coaches recommended by his current manager, Erik ten Hag. Got some interesting developments on that. We'll speak about that. Plus, we've got some World Cup preview to get into. 4 more games today. The games keep going and going and going and going and going. So we're going to preview that. So we've got a jam-packed show this morning as well. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. Let me know, as always, where you're watching from. We can get your comments up in the chat as well. As Avsal says, hit the likes, people. Yes, settle in. You know, it's getting cold outside. I was going to break into a song like it was Christmas there. I think my coffee's a bit too strong this morning. But yes, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. Remember as well, you can join the UV Members Club. Links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members-only content as well. An emoji you can put in the chat right now. You can put red card, yellow card. You can put in the KG emoji. There's 2 of them. One with and without hair, depending which character he's playing today. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you know, you know. And I've got a lot of response to that last night as well. So appreciate everyone that tuned in for that. You got your own emoji. There's a Marcel Porridge emoji in there as well. Plenty of emojis coming up in the future. Let us know which emoji you would like to see next. But let's get into it, because there is actually a lot to get into. I've got to get serious this morning. I've got to get serious face Owen, because there is so much to get into when it comes to the Glazers, the ownership situation at Manchester United, the club being put up for sale. Now, I am going to get into Sir Jim Ratcliffe and him preparing a bid once the club is officially put up for sale, even though I kind of thought it was anyway, but it's not officially, I guess. We'll get into all of that. Let's start off with the latest developments. So, about the Glazers, about the ownership, Rob Dawson has written a piece for ESPN this morning saying that Manchester United's owners, the Glazer family, are looking for a world record price for a sports franchise if they are to sell the club. Now, this is something that I spoke about last night or yesterday evening. There is a video up on the channel at the moment. I went through some prospective buyers for Manchester United. Not the buyer that KG was playing on his channel. That's a different thing. We're talking real, actual people that could purchase the club. So there's been links to Dubai and the possible investment firms in Dubai being interested in purchasing United. There's strange links to Amazon, Jeff Bezos, Meta, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, obviously Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I went through all of them yesterday, so in a bit more detail, so you can check that out on the channel. But as I mentioned, the Glazers are looking for this world record fee to purchase Manchester United, and that reportedly is somewhere in the range of £5 billion to £9 billion. The world record for a sports franchise is $4 billion, I believe, or £4 billion, whatever it may be. It was for the Denver Broncos, the NFL team, and obviously Manchester United is a much bigger sporting franchise than that. The global reach is astronomical in comparison, so the Glazers look at that and they say, well, if that went for $4 billion, then clearly Manchester United could go for 8 or maybe even more. So the Glazers are looking for that. And it kind of goes back to why they're wanting to sell in the first place now, because they realise the time is nigh. They are at a precipice. They're at a crossroads. They have to put up or shut up. The club requires significant investment, not just on the pitch, but also when it comes to the stadium, the training facilities, just the general infrastructure in the club. And they don't have that kind of cash in their pocket. And they realise, well, club's worth a lot. We've got to put our hands in our pocket. Time to cash in those chips and time to make the money and get a massive return on investment for a club they leveraged with debt 17 years ago, whenever it was. So that's why they're deciding to do it. Now, Rob Dawson is also writing that a full takeover is the most likely outcome, although the Glazer family will only accept an offer that would make Manchester United the most expensive sports club ever. However, when I read that, I say to myself, well, of course it's going to be. Of course it's going to be. Manchester United, as mentioned, not just in terms of football clubs, in terms of sporting entities, is one of the biggest sporting franchises, arguably the biggest sporting franchise in the world. You go to any continent, you go to any country, you say Manchester United to someone that's not even a football/soccer fan, and they'll know exactly who you're talking about, what you're talking about. It's just that big. The potential of this club, if it is backed by a consortium, a wealthy businessman, a state in certain cases, is nobody could compete. And the Glazers know that. For all of the mismanagement that the Glazers have done during their tenure, for all of the cash they've sucked out of the club, for their dividends, for their only care about the marketing capabilities and followers, etc., etc., etc. The Glazers know exactly just how big Manchester United are. These guys may be parasites to some, but they are no fools. They know exactly the potential, they know exactly the price, and they've had plenty of people consulting them as to how much truly they can get and how much Manchester United is truly worth. Well, actually, they're two different things, really. There's Manchester United's value, and there's how much Manchester United would be sold for. And how much it would be sold for is far higher than its actual value. But at the same time, they saw the Chelsea purchase earlier this year. They compare them, as I mentioned earlier on, to NFL purchases or takeovers. And they said, well, United's far bigger. Far, far bigger than that. So we know we can make a ton of money. And that's exactly what they're going to do. Now, that statement that came out on Tuesday, the one that myself and KG broke down here live on the channel, that's still up. You can check that out too. When I was reading through it at the time, I said this is very businessese, isn't it? It's very businessese, and there was a lot of business jargon in there. The word sale was literally used once, and the rest was about strategic alternatives, investment, followers, all that kind of stuff. And it was very difficult to kind of sift through what they were actually saying there. And Rob Dawson writes that the statement issued on Tuesday by the Glazers was deliberately vague as to not weaken the Glazers' negotiating position, which is quite interesting too, because at the same time, a lot of people questioned why now in terms of, I mentioned earlier on, the crossroads that they're at, but also at the same time, you look at Liverpool. Liverpool at the moment, they're up for sale too. FSG, they came out with a pretty similar statement, really, a few weeks prior to this, saying pretty much the same thing. We're exploring alternatives. We're looking at all options. And what they really mean is put your bids in, basically. Put your bids in. Let's get a bidding war going, and we'll sell it to the highest bidder. And reportedly, that statement was deliberately vague so that the Glazers can still charge a high amount and they can get this bidding war going, because their position is still somewhat shaky, a little bit shaky, because the moment that these particular parties know that the Glazers have to sell, because again, they're at these crossroads where they're not going to put in any investment, they're not going to put their hands in their pockets, then suddenly these potential buyers can start going, wow, 5 or 6 billion is maybe a little bit high. Maybe the actual value of Manchester United is a little bit less. However, I would argue, and I'm not a business expert, it must be said, I would argue that there will be so many interested parties here that we are going to get into a bidding war, that the price will escalate, and that world record fee that they're searching for, I think they'll get it. And I think they'll get it quite comfortably, because if you start to get involved, again, states like Dubai, if you start to get involved major consortiums from the United States, we could be looking at some real astronomical fees here. And again, I think the Chelsea takeover, whilst it's not a perfect example of how a takeover does happen in real time, I think the Glazers did look at that and say, well, actually, there were how many parties involved, or interested rather, in purchasing Chelsea earlier this year? What was it, 10? Maybe even more than that? And I think that probably took the Glazers by surprise. And they said, wow, that was a lot of people, actually, more than we'd thought in the past. So in their mind's eye, given that it's all driven by money, they thought, well, if we can pit those against each other, plus the people that we know historically have been interested in buying United, we can make a lot of money. We can get this financial world record for a sporting franchise. So them putting out that statement as vague to have their negotiating position stronger, I think their negotiating position is always going to be stronger. And I don't think really they're going to be in the position to negotiate that much. I think they're just going to say, we'll give it to the highest bidder and we want a lot. That's it. That's really all they want. They want money. They want out. Now, as far as, again, in that statement, they mentioned the Rain Group, who that name may ring a bell for you, because the Rain Group, named as the Glazers' exclusive financial advisor after handling the sale of Chelsea to LA Dodgers part owner, Todd Boehly and his consortium, have not put a deadline on receiving offers for United, and there is an expectation that many of the same parties who took part in the process to buy Chelsea will register their interest. Again, that was something we kind of spoke on yesterday, that the expectation is those people that lost out would come back again, which you can look at it a couple of ways, can't you? Clearly, they're going to come back because there were several parties that were interested in buying a sporting franchise. Now, Manchester United comes on the market. No disrespect to Chelsea, but Manchester United are far bigger and have far bigger potential in terms of return on investment and in terms of just everything than Chelsea do. So those parties will be like, oh, absolutely, we're going to come back in. The concern from a United fan might be, well, if they weren't good enough for Chelsea, why are they suddenly good enough for United? That would be a concern of mine. We always talk about wanting the best in class. We always talk about wanting to have the best of everything. Players, coaches, scouts, executives, chairmen, owners. Why would we want to have an owner that wasn't good enough for Chelsea? But it doesn't really matter, I guess, to the Glazers whether they're good enough or not. What really matters to them is how much they're paying. Now, speaking of how much they're paying, as I mentioned, that world record fee they're looking for around £5 to £9 billion. £6 billion was quoted by Rob Dawson. One interested name, of course, is a name that's been linked to United for months at this point, and that is Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It was reported yesterday exclusively, got to give him credit, to the Telegraph. Tom Morgan was the one to break this story, saying that Sir Jim Ratcliffe will bid. This was very, it wasn't maybe, it was he will. Sir Jim Ratcliffe will bid for Manchester United after the Glazers formally put the club on the market. Jim Ratcliffe, though, is wary about overpaying for Manchester United, as insiders suggest the Glazers are looking for a price in excess of £5 billion. Ratcliffe's renewed interest in buying Manchester United is said to be serious. Ineos have a rule, of course that's his company and that's the investment firm as well, because I've seen a lot of people talking about this, that his wealth is something like 5 or 6 billion or something like that. But I saw something saying the Ineos portfolio, as it was, is like 20 or 30 billion or something like that. Again, these are the financial murky waters that I myself am not an expert in. But Ineos have a rule when launching takeovers that they expect investments to pay off or increase significantly in value after 3 years. Ratcliffe says he always puts business logic before passion. And you know what's quite interesting, actually? And let me know your thoughts about this in the live chat, because I'll get some of your comments up on the screen, that I've seen opinions somewhat divided on Sir Jim Ratcliffe possibly being the next owner of Manchester United. Would you want Britain's wealthiest man to be Manchester United's next owner in comparison to some other options? Obviously, if it's a binary choice between Ratcliffe and the Glazers, it's an easy decision all day. But when you've got other parties involved, such as, obviously, as I mentioned, Dubai put out there, or another American consortium, is Ratcliffe an option that you would like to see? Or when you see other sporting franchises that he's taken over, i.e. Nice in Liga, do you look at that and say, well, maybe there might be better options out there. Maybe running a sporting franchise isn't his best quality, or do we need more money than what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is proposing or has available to him? And as I've said before, to me, in my opinion anyway, it's not about how much money they have. It's not about their geographic location. It's about what do they want to do for Manchester United? What do they want to do for the club? What are their interests? Are their interests on the Glazers side of things when they look at this as a business, as a company, and they say, this is a license that they burn through cash and we can make more of it? Is that what they're thinking? Are they thinking that it's purely a cash cow? It's purely something that we can just make a load of money. There's a ton of potential in it from a business perspective, and we can just rake that cash in. Yes, it's going to cost a lot of money, but when it comes to an investment, when it comes to the return on investment, that'll be very quick, so that's fine. Or do they want to purchase the club, and do they want to actually see it thrive on the pitch as well as in the business world? Because it is a business, but do they want to see it thrive on the pitch? Is that their first and foremost idea? Do they want to return to the club where it hasn't been in a decade, and that's at the top of the Premier League? Do they want to return to the club to where it hasn't been since 2008 when it last won the Champions League? Is that what their mindset is? Because, and I think that's a positive part of Sir Jim Ratcliffe, of course, is that he's a Manchester United fan. He's a fan, and he's spoken and gone on record that he's a fan. And he's spoken and gone on record several times about wanting to buy the club whenever he's been asked, when he put in the bid to buy Chelsea last year, which was late. It was well past the bid deadline, and a lot of people thought it was some kind of chess move from Sir Jim, in that he was just basically proving, not to Chelsea, to the Glazers, I've got money and I'd be willing to spend it on a sporting franchise. And that kind of, raised the eyebrow a little bit. And since then he said, well, I would be interested in purchasing United, but it's not for sale. The Glazers, he always played nice as well, because you've got to curry favour. The Glazers, they're nice guys. They're nice guys, but it's not for sale. I've spoken to them before, but it's not for sale. Well, things changed. Things have changed. United is for sale now. And perhaps, according to this report, he's definitely going to put in a bid, but is he the right guy? Is he the right guy for United? And again, it doesn't come down to money or location for me. It comes to what is his interests in United. If it's about winning, and if it's about thriving on the pitch, and again, investing in the stadium and investing in the training ground, because we are behind the times at this point. There are so many facilities around, not just the world, but just in England. Forget the UK, forget Europe, forget the world, just in England, arguably in Manchester, that there's better facilities that aren't Manchester United's at this point. That's embarrassing, considering the advantage we started off with. To get to a point now where we don't even have the best facilities in the city, that's a problem. And again, if his mindset is, I want to come in, I want to win trophies, and I want to restore Manchester United to being the best in class, having the best stadium in the world, having the best training ground in the world, then that gets my seal of approval. But at the same time, you do have to look at what he's doing currently with his current sporting franchises. Is it all that good? I don't know. Let's see what you're saying in the live chat as well, because again, I have seen this on social media, and it's quite interesting. So Skiliano says, realistically, Sir Jim probably can't afford to pay the upfront cost and then invest into the stadium, training ground and squad. Cornish Maid says, that's a great name, says, I reckon Sir Jim will join with someone else to make it a competitive bid. Dilver said Sir Jim can't afford where the club needs to go. Lion's Opinion says Sir Jim needs another partner. Only then can they cover the finances. That is something that I've seen a lot of people saying, that as this price point of United increases, and it feels like it's snowballing already, really, doesn't it? It feels like already it's constantly getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And again, we're talking world record amounts. We're talking 5 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion, possibly even 9. And then that's just the price to purchase the club, let alone then 2 billion on the stadium, a billion on the training grounds. Then about just the infrastructure, the things maybe we can't see. Improving the scouting network, investing into the local community and other outside projects as well. It's a cost that's spiraling out of control, and even Britain's wealthiest man alone may not be able to finance it. But again, that's when you get into the realm of consortiums, isn't it? And that's what people are saying when it comes to the possible American option. And that's what we saw when it came to the Chelsea bidders earlier this year, is that it came down to not one person. It came down to consortiums. It came down to a group of wealthy people. It came down to a group of wealthy people all putting money in to get to the point where it was, what was it for Chelsea? Was it 2.5 billion, 5 billion, whatever it was? 2.5? I always get that figure wrong. Let me know in the live chat. But the point being is that I think there's some concern or some skepticism whether Sir Jim can afford it on his own, or his company Ineos can afford it on their own. Because again, that's the point as well that a lot of people are pushing back on. Well, it's not really Sir Jim, it's Ineos that would be purchasing United. And as it says in the report from the Telegraph, it doesn't really matter because he's going to put in a bid anyway. But at the same time, the general rule is that they expect investments to pay off or increase significantly in value after 3 years. And even that is somewhat questionable, because you could argue that the Glazers are selling at the moment, or have decided to sell at the moment, because they feel like Manchester United, its valuation may have hit its peak. In a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time, is Manchester United going to be as valuable as it is right now? Are sporting clubs or sporting franchises, whatever you want to call them, are they going to be as valuable as they are right now? We're in a situation globally where there's a significant economic backdrop of uncertainty about valuation, inflation, etc. And who knows what that looked like in 2 or 3 years' time. There could be a massive market crash. There could be another risk. Well, we're basically going to be in another recession. I think we probably are in one at this point. Could that affect the valuation of sporting teams too? But at the same time, you could also say that the reason why the Glazers are selling now is because the valuation of United could dip in the next 2 or 3 years if there isn't investment in the club. Whereas if there is significant investment in the club, i.e. a new stadium, new training ground, new facilities, continued investment on the pitch, then the valuation of United will continue to climb, which could then tick the rule that Ineos like to have when they have takeovers of clubs. So certainly, Sir Jim is going to be a party. Certainly, he's going to be a party that is interested. And clearly, the reports are saying that he's definitely going to put in a bid. Whether that's a bid just Ineos, whether that's a joint bid, whether he leads a consortium of other businessmen, time will remain to be seen on that. And I don't think, it must be said, this is something that is going to happen overnight. Again, you can look at the Chelsea takeover for certain examples of how things happen in terms of takeovers of football clubs, but at the same time, that's not a perfect example of how things run because it's a very atypical takeover. As we said before, the Chelsea takeover was atypical because that was a club in which its owner had been sanctioned due to political outside events. Therefore, Chelsea had to be sold within a real short period of time. Otherwise, their license to operate was going to disappear. That is not the case with Manchester United. Therefore, this bidding process or this process in general, as the Glazers are calling it, probably will take longer and longer than that. So it could take 12 months. It could be towards the end of the season. I think the positive is that Manchester United as an entity, it doesn't really affect them in terms of their day-to-day operations because Manchester United is a self-sustaining business. It's operated for the last time the Glazers put an actual penny of their own money in, which I believe was 2011. Since then, it's operated and done transfers and run transfer windows based on the money that they've generated, their revenue. And we've still been able to do transfer windows of spending over £200 million on players. So day to day, that's not a concern, but this is certainly going to be something that's rumbling on as well in the background, and we'll continue to rumble on. Be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Haven't even got 100 likes yet. We can do better. We can do better. I believe in you. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner as well. Adrian says here, and again, I think this is important to sort of dispel these kind of things, saying, do you think the new owners will be in place by the January transfer window? I really don't. Again, the due diligence that's involved in this, when you're talking about this amount of money, world record fees, billions, 5 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion, 9 billion, the amount of due diligence that has to go into that, the amount of checks, and I say checks, I mean checking stuff, not writing checks, all that kind of stuff, it takes a long time. Again, the Chelsea one was atypical because they were operating against the clock, essentially. They were running on a deadline. That's not really the case here. So it's taken months just to get to this point that the Glazers have released the statement, and Manchester United released the statement. The wheels were put in process earlier this summer or earlier this year. Frankly, the wheels were put in process when the Super League collapsed, and that was in April of last year. And it's taken all this amount of time of getting outside parties involved, like the Rain Group, getting legal counsel involved, getting financial advisors involved. That takes months and months and months and months of work. So as far as anything in the real immediate future, I don't think that happens. Realistically, the earliest you could say would be maybe, the season ends in April, May, maybe by then, but that's a big maybe. Again, when you're talking a world record amount, there is a lot that goes into that. And a lot of parties. The bidding process itself is probably going to take months as well. So I don't suspect anything anytime soon. But the speculation and the interested parties coming out publicly and trying to leverage their position and trying to get a better negotiating foothold by getting a winning favor or winning the approval of the fans. That will happen. I'm sure of it. I'm sure we'll hear these parties come out and do interviews, because then they will hope that the fans will put pressure on the club and the Glazers to sell to this party as opposed to that party. That will happen. So I don't think, again, this is going to happen anytime soon in terms of we're going to have new owners tomorrow, anything like that. Now, speaking of Avram Glazer, we got a rare appearance. Yes, it's a Thanksgiving miracle, because it's Thanksgiving today. If you are American or if you celebrate, happy Thanksgiving, because it's Thanksgiving. I've always wanted to be in America at the time of Thanksgiving, because I don't know if you've seen me, I'm a giant glutton, and just the thought of eating just plates and plates of food is absolutely fantastic. So if you do celebrate, happy Thanksgiving. And Avram Glazer last night was heading to a restaurant, and I always love these kind of interviews whereby someone's going to a restaurant and it's just a journalist with a microphone. Hey, bang, ask questions. He was going into a restaurant and he was asked by a Sky News reporter a couple of questions, obviously one being on the sale of Manchester United, and two, he was asked about Cristiano Ronaldo. So when asked about these reports that the club has gone up for sale, Avram Glazer spoke near enough word for word. It basically repeated the statement that was put out. It was a very short answer. It wasn't as long as the statement, but he said, quote, "The board went through a process and it's decided it's going to look at different strategic alternatives. We'll see where it leaves us." So, of course, very non-committal, very vague. And as I spoke about before, that vagueness is to ensure that the Glazers have a lot of negotiating power when it comes to demanding this world record fee. And again, there's not really a lot to look into that. Again, he's saying we'll see where it leaves us. We went through a process, and as I just said, that process really is been since the summer, that they've gone through this process of weighing up the pros and cons, selling the club, of minority ownership, of outside investors. And realistically, what it's come down to, they've assessed all of those options. They've come to the conclusion, now's the time. Now's the time. Now's the best time to sell the club. Now's the time they're going to get the most money for it. And whilst they can talk about strategic alternatives, whilst they can talk about, well, we're just looking at all options, whilst they can talk about whatever, basically what they are saying is that the club is up for sale. And a full takeover is really what they're looking for. They can argue that, well, if an opportunity comes up where someone wants to come in and purchase 20% of United, but they put in 500 million or whatever, that realistically, that's not enough. That's not enough for the investment that's required. And again, this is why just the purchase of the club is such a big issue, and it's only really a full takeover that they're looking for, because even if you had minority investors or minority ownership, someone came in and said, hey, we'll give you this money for buying 20-25% of United, it's not enough. The stadium alone reportedly is going to cost £2 billion. The training ground, possibly another billion on top of that, let alone every other aspect of the infrastructure that needs overhauling at United. Why would someone invest 3 billion quid into United for a minority ownership? That's bad business. So it's only going to be a full takeover. The numbers just don't jive, basically. The numbers don't go together. So it's only really a full takeover. But I would be surprised if we hear anything else from the Glazers after this. I mean, they said it in the statement. The club and the owners aren't going to say anything until they've decided an option to take. So the next thing we hear officially on the record from Avram or Joel Glazer or the Glazer family will be that they've accepted an offer, or they've decided that they're going to stick around. And I saw a lot of reaction to this interview by saying, oh, that was very vague. They're going to stay. They're going to stay. They're going to stay. Again, the reports in the summer were that actually the majority of the Glazer family wanted out. And it was only really Joel Glazer and maybe Avram Glazer that were like, well, maybe we should stay. Maybe there's more we can do. Maybe there's more money we can pull out. That was it. And clearly they've come to the conclusion that their other family members have, that now's the time to go. Now, Avram was also asked about Cristiano Ronaldo. Who else? Ronaldo, because he was the catalyst. He was the catalyst. He's why, look, the Glazers, they thought that they were never, ever going to sell. And then they got the remote out. I don't have a remote near me, so let's use my phone for reference. Improv. Give it that. Went on Talk TV and they went, wait a minute. Was that Ronaldo talking to Piers Morgan? Sell the club. Sell the club. We've been humiliated. We've been embarrassed. Ronaldo spoke about us for 60, 90 seconds. We've got to sell the club. Nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. If you want to look at real reasons why the Glazers decided now's the time to sell, look at the collapse of the European Super League. Look at the investment that is required at Manchester United. Look at all of these factors. Look at the financial situation in the world at the moment. Look at the Chelsea takeover. Look at the fan protests. They're the reasons. They're the real reasons why the Glazers have decided to sell. This has been an ongoing process for the better part of nearly 18 months. Cristiano Ronaldo had nothing to do with it. You know, you could argue that they lost one of their biggest assets, but really their biggest asset is United. It had nothing to do with Ronaldo. And those people, like I saw, was it Kevin Peterson on Twitter going, Ronaldo fell on his sword. He fell on his sword for United. Well, no, he didn't. He didn't. It's these weird connections that people put together. But he was asked about Ronaldo because, of course, look, Ronaldo did in a public forum criticise the man and criticise him and his family as bad owners and saying it's a commercial club and a marketing club, which he's not wrong. That is completely accurate, by the way. He was asked about Ronaldo. And Glazer said, quote, I'm going to tell you about Cristiano Ronaldo. He's a great Manchester United player. I appreciate everything he's done for the club, and I wish him the best luck in the future. And again, what's he going to say? He's going to go, I hate him. How embarrassing. I can't believe he did that. It's over. It's over. There's nothing to say there. Of course he's going to say nice things about him because, let's face it, as who's the real winner there? Is it Ronaldo or is it the Glazers? It's the Glazers. They won in that situation. I bet they're furious that Ronaldo came out in a public forum and said that they don't care about the club. They don't. They don't care about the club. I bet he's furious that he embarrassed them on television to the world. I think they could give a shit about that because Cristiano Ronaldo made him a load of money, and that's what it's always about: money. They sold they did record shirt sales when Ronaldo came back to the club. When Ronaldo came back to the club, the stock price soared, and then they sold a load of stock, and they made a load of money. So I don't think it probably will be like, I'll take the embarrassment because the embarrassment's lining my pockets. The embarrassment has put a load of money in my pockets. It doesn't matter. So I wish him all the best in the future because he's made me very wealthy. That's all it's about. It's all of this. That's all the Glazers are about. It's all about money. Humiliation be damned. Public scrutiny be damned. You know, perception, PR be damned. It's about that. It's all about the money. Now, speaking of other potential owners as well, and be sure to smash a like on the like button as well, guys. Got over 400 people watching. Less than 100 likes. We can do better. I believe in you. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner as well. Remember, you can also check out some other content on the channel too. As I mentioned, yesterday I went through some prospective owners on the channel. Of course, there was the morning view of myself and Mina. There's all of the fallout from the England game as well. Tomorrow, England's second World Cup game is against the USA 2. We'll be live at 6:30 inside UVHQ for a 7 p.m. kickoff. We're going to have plenty of people there, plenty of reaction. So hopefully, another England victory. Fingers crossed. We've also got a real special match preview coming up later today, which I'm really excited about. I'm not going to give away too many details, a bit of a teaser. I'm not going to give too many away, but it's brilliant. So be sure to check that out when it does drop. You can ensure that you check it out by subscribing. Bottom right-hand corner, click the notification bell. You'll be notified every time we go live or we upload a video. It's the best way to stay up to date with all of that UV content. But moving back to the ownership situation, David Beckham. Yeah, I said it. David Beckham, Golden Balls himself. Number 7, a famous number 7 has left United, Ronaldo, but could a famous number 7 be coming back? What a story. Well, it was reported by the Financial Times that David Beckham is, quote, open to talks about Manchester United's sale. Now, the initial reaction to that would be, I think like many people, like myself, is David Beckham ain't buying United. David Beckham's going to purchase United. Where's he going to get that kind of cash from? He's a very wealthy man and a very successful businessman, it must be said. I don't think he's a billionaire. He might be close, but I don't think he's a billionaire. And certainly, he can't have the cash to front a 5, 6, 7, or 8 or 9 billion pound sale of United. However, Beckham is open to holding talks with potential bidders for United, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Various investors have approached Beckham in the past to gauge his desire to back potential bids for United, according to a person close to him. However, those talks never progressed. Now, the Beckham aspect of this, the Beckham aspect of this is quite interesting because, of course, David Beckham, it's not going to be his own money or anything like that. However, what could be a situation, and this is when I talk about what I think is going to happen over the next several months, is this kind of leveraging, posturing of potential bidders. If they can get someone like David Beckham on their side and be a public face or a public backer, that can go quite a long way in the court of public opinion. And suddenly, if you've got a preferred bid that's fan-backed and that's player-backed, that can put pressure on the Glazers where you've got to pick this option. Because if you don't pick this option, then the fans will be in an outrage. And certainly David Beckham, he's got links to businessmen all over the world, and this goes back to the consortium option. He certainly is a person that can put people together or put people in touch with each other, and possibly that could then lead to them purchasing Manchester United or them fronting a consortium themselves. So whilst that article or that headline of David Beckham open to talks about the Manchester United sale, you would look at that and go, are you kidding me? Has actually got more weight to it than you would think. And again, when this is reported by the Financial Times, you have to take it seriously. This is a major business publication. So David Beckham himself is not going to buy Manchester United. David Beckham is not going to be the chief executive of the club or anything like that. Frankly, there are massive complications because he is a part owner of a club in England anyway. He's the part owner of Salford. And I don't know how that would work. I don't know how that would work in terms of would he have to give up. If he became a minority owner of United, in which if he was part of the consortium, he would probably have to give up that Salford part ownership as well. So there are different aspects of this. I think his main feature would be, as Steffi Jenks says there, maybe a broker Beckham, or at the same time, he might just be a person that gives public backing to it. And of course, David Beckham, immensely popular former Manchester United player, immensely influential player in terms of the media world, in terms of public space, and him giving his backing to anything could shift the Glazers to maybe considering one option more than the other, or again, having that groundswell of fan support behind it, that's significant too. But as far as, again, Beckham being involved in the actual purchase of United, that's probably somewhat far-fetched. I mean, again, if it's a consortium, he might throw a little bit of money in, but that's about it. He also, he's the ambassador. He's got this Qatari ambassador deal when it comes to the World Cup. Of course, Qatar are the owners of PSG, so I can't see that they would get involved. But look, again, he might have links to other investors around the world, even in countries or even for states like Dubai, that again have been linked to United. So you can't rule out the Beckham aspect of it, I think. But he would have to sell his stake in Salford or get rid of his stake in Salford. But you would think if he is a part owner of United, he'd probably be willing to do that for giving up Salford for United, one would think. Now, according to this Financial Times report as well, one banker, not me, I'm Mr. Banker, or as KG said, something else, check out the sketch. One banker close to the process said Manchester United could be sold for close to £7 billion. A bidding war could send it higher, they added. However, some footballing finance experts have said that even a £4 billion to £5 billion price tag was too high for a club that was unprofitable last year. And that is true. Manchester United did operate at a loss last year. You could argue that's for a variety of reasons. Again, you can still say that there's the hangover of the pandemic. There also was not qualifying for the Champions League, etc. There are other aspects of it, certainly. And again, this also goes back to why the Glazers might decide to sell now, because in the backdrop of what's going on in the world financially, at the moment, it's in a year's time or in 2 years' time, and they're closer to the books than anyone. Who knows what they're going to record in terms of profit or loss next year or the year after next. And that's why the Glazers might think now it's the right time. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, that price point has already gone all over the shop, really, hasn't it? 4 billion, 5 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion, 9 billion, plus the extra investment required on top of it. The figures are absolutely astronomical. And that's when I go back to, it's not going to be one person unless, again, it's a state-backed bid like Dubai, then it could be, one person. But even that, it's a state fund, isn't it? So it's all very complex. And it's always quite funny, isn't it? Because this is where we all become financial experts when we're really not. Certainly I'm not. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I am. I do my very best. I try and read as much as I can and try and understand as much as I can. But these deals are incredibly, incredibly complex and incredibly not convoluted. But I think this is the waters that we are going to be getting into now. You know, the statement's been put out there. The bait has been put into the water. Now's time for the piranhas or the fish to bite or fight for that little bit of bait. And the bait is Manchester United. The analogy wasn't going where I thought it was going to go. I'll be honest with that one. But you get my point. Now, moving away from the Glazer issue and the Glazer takeover saga. And be sure to smash a like on the like button as well, by the way, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. I do want to talk about some other things before we wrap things up this morning. First of all, I want to talk about Jadon Sancho. News that I think is actually quite positive. There was footage yesterday of Jadon Sancho doing some on-the-pitch work, doing some mid-season break training. Of course, Sancho, we haven't seen him for weeks. He was ill for, 2-3 weeks for Manchester United prior to us going on that mid-season break. Obviously, he then blacked out his social media profiles, and there was concern about him. You know, what was his sort of mental state at this period of time? What was his physical state at this period of time? It was later reported that he was taking a break from social media. He was focusing on his family. He was focusing on improving his form for Manchester United. He was focusing on just resetting everything, essentially. And as I mentioned, this footage showed him in the Netherlands, working with Dutch coaches and trying to get back on track. And Laurie Whitwell has reported from The Athletic that Jadon Sancho is working with Dutch coaches recommended by Manchester United manager Erik ten Hag as he uses the World Cup break to keep fit and refocus. He's currently in the Netherlands. I want to... Is it the Netherlands or Netherlands? I always try my best with the pronunciation. You know me. I think they always say Netherlands, don't they? So if that's right, you can let me know. Trading with North Brabant Amateur Club, OJC Rosmalen, where he keeps his condition up. So again, good to see that he's training. Good to see that he's back on the pitch. Good to see that he's got the ball back up on his feet. And again... This is a positive, clearly. I mean, I think there was some real genuine concern surrounding Jadon Sancho the last couple of weeks, wasn't it, really? That, again, we hadn't seen him, and there was this mystery illness, and nobody really knew what was going on. And it's unfortunate because I guess in his ideal world, he'd be at the World Cup right now, and that would be because he'd be playing really well for Manchester United. But he's right. But he needs to get things... back on track. And this is the thing with Sancho. I always say this. He didn't even start the season that badly. He got a couple of goals, couple of assists, scored against Liverpool, scored against Leicester. And for whatever reason, it just fell off. I think back to pre-season. It was Sancho, Rashford, and Martial at front, and they were doing fantastically. And there was a lot of optimism coming into his second season at United under a new coach. This is where he was going to thrive. And just... for whatever reason, over the last 2-3 months, it's just completely fallen apart. And in the same vein that someone like Anthony Martial needs to use this break as just another preseason, start again, just figure it out, Jadon Sancho is exactly the same because there is a player there. Clearly, there is a player there. There is a real quality player, and his numbers when he was at Dortmund were fantastic. Look at him. And he's not hit those numbers clearly at United since. And the focus now has to be for him. Right, second half of the season, we start again. We go again. When the Euros come up, I get myself back into that squad. Look at Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford is the perfect example for this. A player that looked down and out, or certainly confidence was at an all-time low this time last year. Had a terrible season last season. He was still recovering from injuries. When he played, it looked like he just... didn't want to be there. His head was down. It was constantly shoulders down. And he was unhappy. As he said in these interviews recently, if I'm happy, I play well. I wasn't happy. I needed to refocus. I needed to reset. I needed to go back to the drawing board. He, over the summer, clearly worked on his conditioning, worked on rehabbing any kind of injuries or niggles that he had. He got rid of them all, and they're paying dividends right now for him. He's at the World Cup. He scored a goal at the World Cup. He won Player of the Month for September in the Premier League. He's scoring goals for Manchester United. He's a regular starter. He looks like a different player. So just because you go into a bit of bad form, just because you go into a bit of a funk, just because stuff happens in life, it doesn't mean that it's over. You can always bounce back. You can always recover. Things aren't black and white. You know, you get knocked down, But what is really a true test of character is how you get back up, how you brush yourself off, and how you can come back better. Everyone loves a comeback story. Everyone loves a recovery story. You know, life's about overcoming obstacles. Life's about things not being linear, not being perfect, and things not always being straightforward. It's about overcoming adversity. And it's about coming back and proving those people that doubted you or gave up on you that they were wrong for doubting you. Because quality and cream always rises to the top. And Jadon Sancho's got that in abundance. That's the key thing here. And he's still a very young man. And he absolutely can come back. But it's about his will, his determination, his desire, and the work he's willing to put in. And fingers crossed, here's hoping that he can do that. I know I did nearly get into I get knocked down and I get up again. I thought that sort of inspirational speech very much nearly diverted off into a cheesy song. But hey, that's what it's all about here on The Morning View. If that's not worth a like, I don't know what is. Finally, another day for the World Cup. We've got Group G and Group H games today. Some big nations are playing at the 10 a.m. kickoff. That's 10 a.m. UK time. It's Switzerland versus Cameroon. I don't really know what to expect from that game, it must be said. The games have been a bit of a hit and a miss, haven't they? Because you've had some games like yesterday, Morocco-Croatia, dull, 0-0. Follow that by Japan, amazing victory over Germany, amazing. Again, Saudi Arabia, Japan making major upsets of this World Cup. Although I thought Germany were really poor. It must be said, really, really poor. And for that second goal, Sula, what he was doing, he was 2 yards deep. It was shocking. And Neuer gets beat at the near post. I couldn't believe it. That's followed up with Spain beating Costa Rica 7-0. And now they've got to face Germany next. So Germany are in massive trouble. Because if they lose to Spain, they're out. They're basically done. And that was followed by Belgium versus Canada. I thought Canada, terrible penalty by Davis, and he's never taken a penalty for Canada before. I think it's Jonathan David usually takes them, so that was bizarre. But Belgium, I don't have much thought in them going quite far. I think they've missed their opportunity when it comes to their golden generation, frankly. So yeah, the games are a bit hit and miss. When it comes to Switzerland, Cameroon, again, don't know what to expect with that, to be honest. I think 0-0, or maybe a Switzerland will probably nick it. Uruguay, South Korea, that's a really interesting game, actually. I'm quite excited for that because South Korea, of course, you've got Son. But at the same time, Uruguay is such an interesting team because it feels like they've just had the same pool of players for like 20 years, pretty much. You've got a team that's got Cavani, Suarez, and Darwin Nunez in that team. With Facundo, he might be playing today as well. So I'm really interested. I think that's going to be a really fascinating game. I'm interested in that one. Of course, 4 p.m. as well. Portugal versus Ghana. The time for talking will stop. The scrutiny on Ronaldo will only increase. I saw that press conference of the Portuguese manager. It was him and Bruno Fernandes were talking to the press. And of course, they were being asked about Cristiano Ronaldo. And the Portugal manager was basically like, I nearly hit myself in the nose there. He was going like this, or he was shaking his head, doing all this kind of stuff. And sort of implying, why'd you keep asking me about Ronaldo? Ask him. Take it up with him. Okay? Of course they'd be asking you about Cristiano anyway, because they always ask about Cristiano. But this is what I don't get with him. You can't go into a press conference and say, why are you asking all my teammates about me? Why are you asking them about me? Stop asking them about me. We've got to focus on the World Cup. We've got to be figuring out for the World Cup. And at the same time, well, you just did an interview. If you've done an interview for 90 minutes on national television that's made worldwide news, the journalists are going to ask about you. And if you've then exited Manchester United because you've had your contract ripped up because you offended the club and you went scorched earth on the owner, the players, the executives, everyone, even the chef, the poor chef, he's been crying. Check out KG's channel about that. If you do that, you're going to get questions. So you can't then say, oh, well, why are you asking about me? Why are they still asking about me? Ask about the World Cup. Well, you've made the World Cup secondary to your teammates. Now the scrutiny that's always on you anyway is even more. So the Portuguese manager can rub his face and shake his head and say, I want to talk about something else. But frankly, that's Ronaldo's fault. You can't come out and drop bombs and then be like, okay, talk about anything else. Don't talk about me. And deep down, let's make no mistake here. Deep down, Ronaldo loves it. Ronaldo loves it that they're talking about him. That's what it's all about. So the scrutiny will only continue. And look, I expect Portugal to beat Ghana. But if they don't get a result, it's going to be one man's fault. And whether he says that's fair or not, the distraction and the build-up is perfectly valid because of what Ronaldo's done in his situation. So that's that situation. And finally, Brazil will get their World Cup campaign underway today against Serbia. Of course, Brazil, clearly one of the favourites. Their squad is incredibly strong. And several Manchester United players involved in that. Casemiro, Fred, Anthony. And it's going to be interesting to see how they start. Serbia are a lot of people's dark horses as well. I recall talking to Mina. She said, keep an eye out for Serbia. So that might be a more competitive game than we maybe think. I'm not sure. But certainly some interesting games today. As I mentioned, Uruguay versus South Korea I'm interested in, and some big nations in Portugal and Brazil kicking off their campaign as well. And then, of course, tomorrow, it's England in action once again against the USA on Black Friday for those in the United States as well. So there you go, guys. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As I mentioned, plenty of content still on the way. We've got an England versus USA preview. That's going to be dropping today as well. We've also got, what else have we got that's on the channel? Of course, we've got all the news from yesterday. We've got the morning view yesterday with myself and Mina. We've got, I dropped a video talking about the potential buyers and you've probably seen it on social media. If you haven't, you can check it out on my Twitter. But actually, if you want to see the full sketch, it's not a sketch actually, the full leaked video. I ruined the image. KG, I don't know how he's done it. I don't. He's managed to procure exclusive leaked footage. It's true. Of a possible buyer of Manchester United. I'll leave it there. That's all I'll say. Go to his channel, KG the Comedian. There is footage of a meeting between Manchester United and a potential interested party. And the outcome of it is staggering. And I've received a lot of response about it. So be sure to check it out because it's significant. It's very significant. So be sure to check out KG's channel on there as well. And David Lee's been a member for 5 months. Appreciate 5 months of support. Says peace and love, everyone. Exactly, peace and love. What a perfect way to end the show. There you go, peace and love. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. I'm out of here. Hope you have a great Thursday, and I'll speak for you again very soon. Peace.